Guys, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this is it. I don't know what's going on with this real estate industry. But let me tell you what just changed, and this is super important. Whether you're a buyer or a seller, it actually doesn't matter. It affects both of you negatively. Here's what's up. So we were supposed to have 3 rate cuts, interest rate cuts in 2024. We were supposed to have 6 within the next 18 months. Now all that keeps happening is they keep delaying. When will that rate cut happen? First they said, well, maybe March, then not March anymore. Now they said maybe June. Well, guess what? They just said probably not June. The probability keeps going lower and lower. And this is not my opinion. This is actually all of the experts in the industry that check the macroeconomic levels of everything. They're the ones saying, sorry, it's probably not going to happen in June. Hey, and by the way, my name is Maciek Zaremba. I'm a real estate agent in Sarasota, Florida. Right now, I'm on Siesta Key Beach. If you're interested in following a channel of beautiful things, just click the link below. I love Siesta Key. I love Longboat Key. I love Casey Key. I love all the islands that we have, Lido Key. It's a beautiful place to be. If you got questions, please reach out. Here's my number. And let's get back into this video. So if you're a buyer, it's pretty obvious how this affects you. You're going to be paying more on your payment when you buy a house, period. That's also going to mean that if you're a renter, that maybe your payment might actually go down. That's probably the only good news I'm going to have in this whole video. But really, what else does it do for you buyers? So now, if those interest rates are not going to be cut anytime soon, or at least if there's a lower probability of them being cut in the next year, well, basically, if you're a buyer, you're going to have to deal with that with a higher payment or a lower priced home that you end up qualifying for. But there is actually a little bit of light at the end of that tunnel, because what happens over time is just the law of economics. As you have interest rates stay high, what happens is inventory starts building up. We have seen this happen. It is still happening, and it will continue to happen. As inventory builds up, what happens? Eventually, some of these sellers have to sell. So they do. They just have to lower the price before they get it sold. So some of them are going to come off the market and say, hey, I'll try it at a different time. No problem at all. Probably not going to be in the next 3-4 years, but whatever. But hey, they just say it'll be better next year. So they take it off the market. But usually people keep it on the market. They keep it on the market a lot longer, and then eventually they lower their prices. So buyers, if you don't have to buy right now, and some people do, I get it. But if you don't, maybe, just maybe, this is a speculation, there might be some better opportunities for you in about 2 to 3 years. Unless the interest rates go down. Now, what caused this adjustment of expectations for rate cuts? Very simple. It's our jobs report this time. Now look, there are many reports that can actually lead the markets to determine whether or not we're going to have those 3 cuts or not. But just this past week, it was the jobs report. First of all, it came out and it was really good. A lot of new jobs were created. Good, right? We want jobs. We want jobs. But then they did one other thing, is they adjusted the previous jobs report, and they adjusted it up to be like a lot better than it actually was when it got reported. So does that mean that it was better and they just can't count? I mean, what does that mean? How does that even happen, right? I mean, I'm not really sure how they are adjusting numbers, months later. Like, why are you reporting and releasing the report if you didn't count it right the first time around? Can someone explain this to me, how this works? Because it's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard. These are national numbers. You have computers and databases keeping track of everything, and then they recount and it comes up with a different sum? This is the dumbest thing ever. Report the damn numbers right. Do your job, people. I don't know how these people keep their jobs in the government sometimes, but I do know they're needed. Now, if you're wondering what is the correlation between jobs reports and interest rates, I mean, let me just dumb it down for you, make it really simple. Basically, if we have really good job growth, well, then it looks like the economy is doing well. And if the economy is doing well, we don't need to stimulate it with low interest rates. It's that simple. And low interest rates doesn't mean just low interest rates for housing, although that is, one of the industries that benefits, but low interest rates is also for business development, and that's where the low interest rates help the economy quite a bit, because large companies will start taking risks and borrowing money at low interest rates to try to create more jobs. And I do have a couple other things to say about our real estate market. So we now know that housing affordability is not going to get any better anytime soon. So what are people doing that are struggling with affording their payment? Listen, 1 out of 5 families are actually choosing to skip meals. Don't be the one that does this, okay? Just choose maybe a more affordable meal. Maybe don't go out to eat as much. Do something else that's gonna really do you good, because if your body is good and healthy, then you're gonna be able to think more clearly to kind of get out of whatever problem you have. And maybe one day the rates will go down and you will be able to refinance this loan that you have. And what else have people had to do? Unfortunately, 1 in 6 people chose to skip their vacation. This is really sad. I do think we as Americans work very hard and we have, earned a vacation. So I don't think that's fair. Unfortunately, with everything becoming so unaffordable, and it's not just housing that's unaffordable, it's also the food and the gas and just everything. Maybe the only thing that's getting a little more affordable are buying a car, but let's be honest, who's doing that right now? And if you're wondering how many people are struggling with their payments, get this, it's not just for the homeowners, it's for the renters too. Half of all homeowners and renters are struggling with their payment. So interest rates staying high for longer is not doing anyone any good, especially the people who need it, which sounds to me like it's about 50% of the population. You know what else people are doing to attempt to afford these high payments? Listen to this. Over 21% of the people have had to work additional shifts. No one wants to do that unless they absolutely have to. And also over 20% have sold some of their personal belongings just to be able to make ends meet. So if this tells you anything, it should tell you that the economy, the US, the American citizens, they need lower interest rates. I know that everything changes when the rates drop, but I'm not talking about a silly 0.5% here. We need some significant activity to boost everyone's ability to either refinance out of their high debt or do something better and different. Now, how do these high interest rates affect sellers? This is a quick little segment, so let me just get right down to it. It's easy. As the high interest rates stay higher for longer, which is basically what the Fed said that they're doing, well, there's more and more inventory. And as more inventory sits, that means you have more competition. And with more competition, that means that the prices are going to come down. And if you're not one that's going to be willing to slash the price to make it sell, well, then you're not going to sell. You're going to sit there, your holding costs are going to keep staying high, and basically you're not going to be a happy camper. So what are you going to do about it? If you're a seller, just drop your price now, because I'm telling you, they're telling us, the Fed is telling us exactly what they're going to do, and then none of it is to your benefit. So let's talk about more bad news for the real estate market. So buyers, we've already mentioned, you can't afford to buy a house because you can't afford to pay the interest on the home loan. Well, it gets worse for you. Now, just Friday, a couple days ago, we had the Department of Justice reject the NAR settlement. Now, if you haven't heard, the NAR settlement basically said that we're not going to be allowed to advertise how much a seller is going to be paying a buyer's agent to incentivize them to bring a client, to bring a buyer. Well, unfortunately, the Department of Justice is kind of now leaning towards something a lot worse than what they did. And this hurts the buyers and sellers. And here's what it is. They're saying it's going to look more like an hourly wage. If you're going to be a buyer's agent, you're going to be forced to go into an hourly wage position. Now, just like attorneys who fudge their hourly wages all the time, I'm pretty sure similar thing is going to happen in real estate, because we are licensed professionals just like attorneys. But we're not attorneys. I understand that attorneys have a much more prominent and respectable position. But if we're no longer allowed to advertise how much a seller is willing to compensate to incentivize a buyer, who's going to bring a buyer? I mean, let's think about it. Who's going to work for $25 an hour, showing homes, opening doors, and negotiating for the client's benefit? They're just not going to care. They're going to come in, they're going to open a door, they're going to say, you want it or not? They're not going to do any research. They're not going to work hard. People are basically going to be dumbed down to just do the bare minimum, and now the buyers and the sellers think that it's cheaper to buy real estate, but at the end of the day, it's going to end up with more lawsuits. That's my prediction right now. And this is the sunset on Siesta Key. We're on the Gulf Coast of Florida, so we get the sunsets. The East Coast gets the sunrises. Boy, it is so beautiful. There are so many people at the beach, and I've taken a nice long walk far away from all the masses, but there's still masses over here, don't get me wrong. So sellers, how can high interest rates benefit you? Is there something that I'm not thinking of? I mean, there might be, there might be something that I just don't know that could be happening for all the sellers out there that have tons more competition, that have way less buyers out there on the market, and maybe there's something good about it. I can't think of anything. And maybe there is something good for the sellers with not having to pay the buyer's agent commission and, putting that to an hourly rate. But I mean, is it really going to be good? It might just put all of the listing agents into the role of making sure all the paperwork is done right and all the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, and all the addendums are there properly put together. And there probably won't be as much negotiating going on. The hourly wage employees, I think, are just going to care less. So when you care less, you don't really do that much of a job. But, if I know I'm going to get 3% on a $300,000 house, $9,000 of top line revenue before my expenses, oh boy, I'm fighting. I am fighting tooth and nail, and I'm telling you, my client will win that negotiation, because I love negotiating. I love putting pressure on people and just getting my clients to win, So what's going to happen? I mean, we don't know. Nothing is official yet with this lawsuit, but one thing I do know is that real estate is going through a turmoil. The whole industry is going through a massive change that we have never seen, ever. This is unprecedented. And will the agents stick around? Maybe. I'm sticking around as an agent. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to continue making videos. I'm going to continue helping people buy and sell because I love it, And I always say this, especially to the people thinking about getting into a particular industry, is would you want to keep doing what you're doing if you didn't get paid? If we lived in this perfect utopian society where everything is provided for free, I mean, kind of like communism, but it's just like in practice doesn't seem to work. But whatever, if you're just like everything was provided for and the money didn't exist, you couldn't make more money or less money, there was no disparity between rich and poor because there were no rich or poor. Everyone is just the same financial equity. Would you do what you keep doing? Would you stay an agent if you're an agent? I know I would do it. I would go and keep being an agent. So let's see how this lawsuit turns out. Let's see what happens with our interest rates, and I'll see you on the next one.